ever been so fascinated by a rock that you pick it up, put it in your pocket, and bring it home? Who hasn't? I mean, what's more magical and mystical than holding these compressed pieces of our planet in our hands? Hey everyone, my name is Bre and I'm one of the instructors here at Goodrich Tribe's Benteh STEAM Academy. And for this month's STEAM kit, we'll be looking at the National Geographic's Hobby Rock Tumbler. So why is it so easy to get distracted by these solid pieces of mineral that we can find in most places on our planet? When we pick up a piece of rock, we literally hold a physical representation of time in the palm of our hand. And whenever we surround ourselves by rocks, we surround ourselves by the origins of the history of our planet. Rock tumbling is a great hobby to get into. Oceans and rivers take thousands or even millions of years to produce polished stones. This rock tumbler speeds up that process, but you should still expect about 2 weeks of tumbling for a truly finished look. So remember to be patient, as the best results come to those who wait. This video will act as our unboxing and the assembly and activity video. With that said, let's dive in. So we've gotten everything out of the case except for the rocks. This might stick a little bit, so just wiggle it before you try ripping it off or you might pinch your finger. So you're gonna push out on the edges to pull your lid up. Takes a little bit of working, but you guys can do it. And then let's check out what kind of rocks we got. Okay. So we've got, looks like some jasper or agate. It's either quartz or rose quartz. We've got some either tourmaline or aventurine. This is probably going to end up being some amethyst, I'm pretty sure is what that is. So we've got lots of different rocks. We've got greens, got some clears, got some blue. All of this is like spotted stuff and lots of red. Pretty cool. And we have one big one. We'll have to see what that turns out to be. Now before we get started, let's go over a few safety guidelines. You can find these safety recommendations in your manual, but it's important to review any safety guidelines before starting any activity. Make sure you're using the provided power supply. Looks like this and came bundled. And you're gonna check it to make sure there's no damages. Read the warnings on individual component packages really carefully. On these, they'll have it on the back. These sets contain things that might be harmful if misused. We recommend adult supervision when participating in this activity. Changes or modifications not expressly approved by the party responsible for compliance could void the user's authority to operate the equipment. One thing to mention, don't use hot water. You need to use room temperature, so not too cold, not too hot. Room temperature water is going to be your friend. If you use hot water, when the water cools, it'll suck this bottom inside and you won't be able to get your lid off. So, lastly, and very important, grit, which we'll talk about more soon, can wreak havoc on indoor plumbing. So never pour used grit down any household drain. It's best to wash your stones in a barrel outside or with a garden hose or with a bucket like I'll be doing. Feel free to refer to the manual for more information. Let's start putting our tumbler together and get it tumbling.
Nice.
So we're gonna plug everything together, and that means making sure you have your cord plugged into the wall in a nice safe outlet. This goes into the back like so. And then we can fill our tumbler with our rocks. Oh, hey buddy. So into this tumbler goes a bunch of different rocks that they gave you. And if you have some time, go ahead and pick out 4 or 5 different rocks from your yard, not much bigger than the same size stones they give you, to add to your collection and see what you can find. Make sure your tumbler is only about half full. Shouldn't be more than this in the bottom of your bucket. The first thing we're gonna do is take our coarse grit number 1. This is gonna be the roughest grit and help knock down as much of the stone into those nice rounded shapes as possible. And we're gonna go ahead and pour this directly into our tumbler. You're gonna pour the whole thing into your bucket. This is the roughest grit, and we'll make sure to knock down all the round and sharp edges into a nice rounded shape that we'd like. There you go. Next, we're gonna put enough water to just cover the rocks, no more than half full. Okay, there we go. Shouldn't be more than half full of water. And we are all set to put this back together. This is our nice secure gasket lid, so it's got the rubber around the outside. We're gonna lay that in here and kind of squish it down until it hits this little lip on the inside and can't go any further. This is our next piece. It's our actual top. Goes on as secure as you can get it, and then you're gonna screw on the very tightening lid piece. Make sure you tighten this as much as you can, and you might wanna have an adult help you, because the tighter it is, the more secure your barrel's gonna be and the less likely to spill. So once it's on there, as tight as it'll go, pretty good. We're gonna turn on our awesome tumbler. So on the bottom, it has 1 through 7. And we're gonna use that to set the amount of days that it's gonna tumble for. In your guide, it gives you a general idea of how many days you wanna tumble your rocks for on each different type of grit. In the case of grit number 1, it says 3 to 5, so we're gonna do 4. So we're gonna set our thing to number 4 by pushing the set button until it gets to that number. If you go too far, don't worry, just keep pushing set until it goes back to number 1. We're gonna put our tumbler on it. The metal piece faces this little bar and wheel right here. And then we push start. It's gonna get loud. So after 4 days, we'll go ahead and check it. And we should be able to rinse it all off and put our second set of grit in, which is our medium grit. And that will be our next 4 days of work. I'm gonna show you what happens after 2 4-day sets. He's gonna be our guardian. This has been tumbling for a total of 8 days. We did 4 days on step 1 grit, and we did 4 days on step 2 grit, and it's about to start our polishing steps. So before we do that, I'm gonna show you how to empty these out safely and see what cool rocks we got. I just have a plain bowl. You can do this over a bucket or anything else that you might want. But I'm just gonna dump out the grit water first into an empty bowl or bucket, and that's not going down the drain. It's gonna go outside because it's all environmentally safe stuff on this grit. There we go. See how dirty that is? It's kind of gross. And it looks like mud inside, but it's not very thick. It's pretty watery. So that's good. So we're gonna use our strainer and shake out as much of the water as we can on this. All right, our rocks have gotten really tiny, and that's because a lot of this grit eats away a ton of the rock itself. All right, so next we're gonna do is we're gonna put a little water in here. So I'm gonna use this bucket to get some water from my other bucket. This will be our first rinse. Actually, let's use this guy again. We'll do this. And we'll just pour the water over the rocks a couple of times. Oh, look at that, there's more rocks in there. And you'll wanna rinse your rocks a few times just to make sure they're nice and clean. See how many more little rocks keep popping out? That's awesome. Okay, we'll get this grit out of here. And now we'll do one final rinse. Okay, here are the cool rocks we got. And I'll go outside to dump. Look at that. You have a whole bunch of very pretty, nice, but not polished rocks. So each one of these stones should have no sharp edges. Should be really beautiful. You can see all the colors starting to come out on each one. So you've got some green stones that came out really pretty. You get some very nice light pink. You've got these beautiful red stones. And look at this blue one. How cool is that? And then, if you guys notice, we've got these really cool spotted ones. And now that we've actually cleaned off all the stuff on them, you can see these little tiny orange spots in addition to the black spots. So exciting. Okay, so now that we've rinsed out our bucket, we're gonna do one more rinse on this guy. And we're just gonna get a little bit of water in there. We're about to do the polishing step. So we're gonna add all our rocks back to our tumbler. Since our rocks have lost a lot of volume, we don't need nearly as much water. So you'll see this is kind of almost like a third of the way full instead of half full. There's a lot less rock in here than there was before, which is fine. We expected that. So we're gonna do step 3, because we already did 2 full. We did our main grit number 1 and our grit number 2. Now we're gonna do number 3, which is called a pre-polish. And that is gonna go for a few days, not too many. I believe it says 4 days as well. And that's just gonna start really getting those fine little divots out of our rocks and making it super, super solid and super smooth. All right. So what did I say before? Tighten it down as much as possible. Secure. We're gonna put her on here and start her for 4 days. We'll see you guys in 4 days.